Well, this all began 3 years ago, and I suddenly noticed that the BBC pips for the time signal had dropped by a semitone from B natural to B flat. Well, much of my radio listening is when I'm doing something else, so I'm a strong believer in saving time by doing two things at once. And so I was in my bedroom, brushing my teeth, having just shaved, and suddenly I heard the B natural drop to B flat.
An accident near junction 12.
Well, I thought this is just a momentary aberration. Let's give it time to see what it will do. And when it had remained there for 2 weeks, that's when I wrote my first letter to the Telegraph 3 years ago. And that brought a little correspondence, not very much, but the chief thing was that almost stealthily, you might say, the time signal was restored to its former B natural. And so I thought, well, leave it at that until quite recently, that is in July, I noticed that the B natural had dropped to B flat once again.
The World at One. This is Nick Clark with 40 minutes of news and comment.
And so I again gave it time, and when it had been like that for about a fortnight, that's when I wrote my next letter to the Telegraph. Sir, I notice that once again the pips have dropped in pitch, etc. And that brought a great deal more attention, including telephone calls and interviews in this very room from the press, Daily Mail, Evening Standard, or in the Sunday Telegraph itself, press photographers. And so it really created quite a stir.
Paul Merton, thank you very much indeed for letting us hear your Desert Island Discs.
Thank you.
Sue Lawley's Castaway at the same time next week will be Lord Palumbo. Desert Island Discs was created by Roy Plumley and is produced by Olivia Seligman.
BBC News at 10 o'clock.
The Daily Mail went to see the engineers, I understood, and rang me back and said that they were very concerned to hear about this, and they had no immediate explanation for it, and that they accepted my lofty judgment, absolutely, and I was a bit touched by that and thought about it, especially when they restored the note from B flat to B natural, where it is now.
So what was it in the end?
It was this unit here, the signal generator. I'll just take it out. It's basically an oscillator which gets fired every time a pip is due to go out. The problem was that due to age of the electrical components, it had drifted flat in frequency, and repairing it was just a simple case of adjusting a few resistors inside.
Do you welcome this sort of comment from a member of the public?
Yes, we do. It's very difficult to monitor everything which goes on in radio outputs, and if there's something that a listener knows is wrong, then we're perfectly happy to hear from them.
But I understand you had a whole, media storm over this. That must have been a little uncomfortable, wasn't it?
I must have been reading the wrong papers.
No, we don't mind, really. As this particular timing engineer is a little tone deaf, I certainly welcome it. But no, we're quite happy to talk to any member of the public about time, any time.
Dr. Dolmetsch has all sorts of ideas about how you could change the time signal and improve it so that it could be more of a help to musicians.
Yes, that's right. I read in one of his letters to the Sunday Telegraph that he would welcome a 440 Hz pip.
That's going to an A, or C being a more important note in music. So that was what I suggested.
We have had musical pips in the past as a joke, but the time reference itself, the 6 pips have always been 1,000 cycles approximately. right back from the day they were first introduced way back in 1924.
There is an argument this is a part of our national heritage, the time signal, and that the fact that it should have slipped this way is a bit of a scandal. How would you answer that?
You've caught me on the hop with that.
When I was being interviewed about the pips, one of the interviewers asked, well, what are you going for next? And so, again, irresponsibly, I said, oh, Big Ben. I like things to be in tune, relatively in tune. I'm quite prepared to accept that in 1867 they were using an altogether slightly lower pitch. That's understood. What I'm concerned with is the relativity of the intervals with each other. And the Big Ben tune is in the key of F major, starting with an F. And if you take the F there as your established pitch, the A that follows is sharp, the G is about right, the C very flat. And then when you get to the bong on a low F, an octave lower, that is flat to the average established by the chimes. So instead of something like this, and then somebody, this is the news read by Katrina Young. Now, these intervals are in tune with each other, but what we hear is something like
Big Ben, when it was designed, was meant to be an E natural. Just as it got put into place back in about 1859, a crack developed in it, and the bell was turned about 90 degrees, so it now strikes on a different part. So the fact that it's got a crack in it may make the sound be slightly away from E natural, but I couldn't be certain of that, not being an expert sound engineer.
But is there a sort of issue in this? Is it something that bothers you, that it might not be bang on?
No, not at all, because if it was bang on, then it wouldn't be Big Ben as we all know and love. I mean, the sound is the sound that you get and people recognise. If it has altered, then it's given it a character of its own.
Well, now, here we are dealing with a 13.5-ton bell. Now, I'm no expert in such matters, but I should think that on that sort of weight, they would need to remove 1/4 of a ton of metal from the flat notes to bring them to pitch, certainly on the big one. The world knows that I've devoted my life to excellence in early music. That is to say, no matter what century it comes from, it must be done well, not just historically. And that means perfectionism in whatever you're playing. And I wouldn't count my comments on pips and bongs as being in any way a serious side of my career.